Joining me now from the Munich Security Conference is California Senator Adam Schiff. Welcome, Senator. It's awfully good to have you on the show. So I'd like first, sir, to get your response to Vice President J.D. Vance's speech at the conference there yesterday, where he berated European leaders on a whole host of issues. What do his comments reveal about the Trump administration and our commitment to NATO?
They were really shocking and so disappointing when what I think our allies needed to hear was a renewed commitment by America to NATO, to our European partners, a willingness to stand up to the Kremlin and make sure that we provide Ukraine with all of the help that it needs to fight this war of aggression by Russia. But instead, what Europe got was a lecturing, a condescension, a demeaning speech that really I think just attacked our allies. It was greeted, I think, enthusiastically in one place, and that was the Kremlin. Exactly the wrong message right now.
Well, for sure, because President Trump, to your point, signaled this week an open mind to Vladimir Putin ending the war on his terms. Trump suggested Ukraine could be excluded from his negotiations with Putin. You had Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth saying it's unrealistic for Ukraine to return to its pre-2014 borders or to expect NATO membership. How do you interpret that framing? And big picture, where does it leave Ukraine?
Well, Donald Trump likes to pride himself on being a great negotiator, but it's hard to imagine going to a negotiation with a worse posture than the one that's been articulated by the President and Secretary of Defense. Why on earth would you go into a negotiation conceding things that should never be conceded? So deeply hurtful, harmful. In terms of Ukraine and NATO, that's up to Ukraine and NATO. Russia doesn't get a veto over who belongs to NATO, not now, nor should they ever.
Senator, do you find that your colleagues in the Senate are supportive of this approach that we're hearing at the Munich Security Conference, or is there bipartisan support for Ukraine?
There's really strong bipartisan support for Ukraine. We sat down on a bipartisan basis with Zelensky yesterday. And I think all around the table, we expressed our appreciation for the heroic sacrifice Ukraine has made, the fact that we want to maintain a strong level of support for Ukraine. So I think Zelensky heard that loud and clear from the U.S. Senate on a bipartisan basis. And I hope that we can allay some of the concerns that have been raised by the real mixture of messages that Europe, Russia, and Ukraine have been getting from the Oval Office and from the Defense Department.
But do you think that is reaching President Zelensky? Because as you know, just today, he said that he doesn't think Europe can count on the United States any longer, that Europe has to create its own army and learn to defend itself better in the wake of potentially losing U.S. support.
Well, I have to think Zelensky is concerned when he hears, on the one hand, pretty strong bipartisan support for Ukraine in Congress, but he hears different messages and conflicting messages from the administration. I think he, like the rest of the world, is trying to figure out what does that all mean and where is the center of gravity in this new government. So I can understand the apprehension that he must feel. I certainly will be working my hardest in the Senate, and I'll have a lot of allies in this in fighting for strong support for Ukraine and no concessions to the Kremlin.
Let's go stateside here as the attorneys general in 14 states have filed a lawsuit against Elon Musk, arguing that his unbridled power to dismantle entire government agencies and access sensitive data is unconstitutional. What are your colleagues saying about the authority that's been given to Musk and his DOGE team without congressional approval? And how do you expect this to play out in courts?
Well, initially, I think the opposition was really just from Democrats in the Congress, concerned about the unlawful nature of these actions, the harmful, destructive nature of these actions, thousands and thousands of Americans losing their jobs, but also losing important work that is really central to our national security interests, the dismantling of USAID, for example. Here in Munich, we've been talking to our partners about how that just abandons the field around the world for China to move in and secure basing rights and mineral rights because we're no longer in the development business around the world. So it started out just, I think, mostly Democrats pushing back, but now you're starting to see Republicans in different parts of the country who are deeply impacted. You've got my colleagues who are losing jobs in the Forest Service, and you've got other my colleagues that are representing farm states and are losing export opportunities. So I think we're starting to see more bipartisan pushback. But one thing I think it's really important for the American people to understand that's really behind all this. Why these cuts? Why the urgency? Why is the Trump administration and Elon Musk doing this? Basically, they need to come up with trillions to fund a tax cut for wealthy people and corporations.
Democrats are demanding an additional hearing to question Trump's pick to lead the FBI, Kash Patel, alleging that he was involved in recent firings at the Bureau and even may have perjured himself at his confirmation hearing. So a lot of his responses to you were, "Not that I recall." Will any of this stall his confirmation? And do you think he's being put in place to take action against agents who may have worked on cases involving Donald Trump?
We have whistleblower information, according to our ranking member, who that indicate that Patel was deeply involved in the firing of these top-level FBI agents and officers. And during the hearing, during his confirmation hearing, we asked him about this. Did he have knowledge about this? And as you were saying, when I asked these questions in written form, his answers were, "Not that I recall, not that I recall, not that I recall." Now, it would be one thing if these were events that happened years earlier, but these were events that happened hours or days earlier. And for him to say he doesn't remember was so duplicitous. So we want to bring it back in the committee. There are a lot of unanswered questions also about 1 to 5 million in stock options that he has, or a stock investment that he has in a Chinese Communist Party funded company with a terrible record of using child labor and slave labor. So we have a lot of questions that he needs to come back and answer. Will the Republicans insist on that? Probably not. He does seem to be poised to be confirmed, which is going to be a terrible tragedy for the country's preeminent law enforcement agency, but also for the American people, because it means that the FBI director is going to be focused on political witch hunts, not focused on keeping them safe. This is somebody who said he wanted to close down FBI headquarters on day one, who is really more suited as an internet troll than he is as FBI director. But sadly, it looks like he is headed for confirmation.
Always good to speak with you. Senator Adam Schiff of California, my friend. Safe travels.